Yeah. Okay. All right. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the January 6th, 2021 Conservation Advisory Council meeting. So could we, Laura, could you take the roll, please?
I'm present.
Here.
Here.
Oh, here. Sorry,
You're on
you're breaking up a little bit on me, but
And Chairman Dutch Share.
Here I am. Okay, great. So we don't have any minutes this particular meeting, but we'll look at them for the next meeting. Laura, do we have anybody for the privilege of the floor?
No, I checked my email quickly before the meeting and I haven't received any comments or requests to attend.
Okay, great. Then let's move to the environmental assessment forms. And we have EAF 2021-01, which is 2556 Hilltop Road, and it's a subdivision application. So Laura, do you want to just sort of review the applicant's request with us?
Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen here. Oops. There we go. And I think I believe I put this in the agenda statement, or I may have put it in an email, but this is just very preliminary. Like, we're just going to take a look at it, kind of flesh out some of the things that we'd like to know or see, that we can ask of the applicant or just kind of recommend to the planning board. So this is Hilltop Road. It's very close to the intersection of Hilltop and Van Antwerp. There's an existing home on the property with a decent sized yard, like if you're standing at the house to the left. And it recently sold. The person that purchased it, I think, noticed on some older maps that this had been 2 parcels, during the original subdivision, but somewhere, probably 30 years ago, potentially even longer, the 2 lots were combined. They may have always been combined. It's hard to tell when you look at those old subdivision maps sometimes. But he's seen a lot of space in that yard and would like to return the property to 2 lots and then put a new home there. But as you can see in the agenda statement, there's a couple of issues. Doesn't comply with the zoning. The existing home, no matter what you do, is too close to the lot line. So the existing home here is, I think, 7.2 feet from the lot line, and it's supposed to be 15, I believe.
It's 20, I think.
Oh, 20? Okay.
R1, yeah.
Because it's R1, yeah, okay, you're right. And then, yes, it is 20. And then also, R1 zoning district, the lots are supposed to be 18,000 square feet, and both of these are in the 15,000 range. So when they were originally created, the subdivision was prior to 1971, the bulk zoning code. So those existing lots were probably substandard. Now that he wants to return it, they're too small, and there's an existing home that's too close to the lot line. There isn't a whole lot of grade. But we have heard in this area, like, a lot of concern with, kind of changing the character of that neighborhood. This is right across the road from where we had looked at adding two homes for the Lisi subdivision there. And, I think that a lot of the concerns that we looked at there, like what the fabric of the neighborhood is, like what we, really want to see as you're turning off of Van Antwerp and entering into this subdivision, are all those kind of things that, just off the top of our head, we should at least discuss, I think. I might be able to bring up, I did. Here we go. Oops. This is where the already constructed homes are. This is where those ones were that we were looking at before that really didn't recommend them being. And this is kind of the larger side yard here, where he's proposing a new home right in this area here. not a lot of topography. You know, like, this is kind of like front facing the house, and this is that open space where they feel like you could fit another home.
Hey, Laura, do you know, there was a lot of talk about it used to be 2 lots in the past.
Yeah,
But
he shows that on the map.
there was obviously never another house there, though. Right?
Never, no. A lot of times, in these old subdivisions, sorry, when I have a meeting, I should just like close things out. You can actually see these are kind of the old lot numbers. This is probably a double lot here. This is the deed line. So it's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and he is proposing to put the line back between the 4 and the 5.
Did he, it strikes me now, is this a house where they built an addition to expand their garage?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So,
Yeah, actually, Clark, I had the same question.
They
yeah,
definitely did. I think I think you can even find that in the building permits. This was an addition here, like with I mean, a 3-bay garage.
Yeah, now the question I have, was the addition put on prior to the combining of the 2 lots, or was it done before the lots were combined?
So we can definitely look at that, and that can be one of the questions that we, bring back to the board. My sense is that you wouldn't have been able to put the addition on if the lots weren't combined, because
Right.
actually our code says you can't even ask for a variance if you own the adjacent property. You're almost legally obligated to combine it, but I don't know. I will look into that.
Yeah.
so to me, that kind of hurts his case for, I just want to go back to the way it was before it was subdivided, because they built that addition that now really infringes on the side property line. If you go back. Yeah.
Yeah. The other question I had too was, are all the other houses in the neighborhood conforming?
Yeah, I wondered too. We can check that. I had the same
Yeah,
thought.
Yeah, we should check that, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
well-
the house is right next to them. It looks like they're both double lots or something, right?
I think at least the one that's 2 over from it is over here.
Were you talking about lot 3?
Yeah, it looks like on both sides it's they have a lot of land, each lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, like these ones here. These look
Yeah.
like they probably were both double lots. This is the lot that they're proposing here.
Mm-hmm.
These ones look like they may be more of the original subdivision
Yeah.
size.
Yeah.
Okay, so they look like they could be about the same size than if that one was divided in half.
Like, I've
It would
been-
be
So can I
very
ask a-
interesting to see if they conform though, those 3 or 4 houses up to the right.
Yeah.
Yeah, does this match what they just did with that corner lot and made those 2 smaller, on Hilltop, where they subdivided that and made it the 2 homes right there as you come down on the left, or go up on the right, I guess? Because those are the most recent, that's the most recent subdivision of lots in that, on that street, correct?
Yeah, so sorry, this map is a tiny bit older, but that's those 2 lots here, and they did not require variances. So these ones are definitely going to be over 15,000 square feet,
Mhm.
and they had enough frontage, and their homes fit within the setbacks. So these 2 new additional homes that were put here, and there's one that was put on McGovern there, they all met the bulk zoning requirements.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern on this is, well, it's twofold. One is the 7 feet between the sideline and the building for lot 4. And then the other one is the fact that they are smaller, they're below the threshold of the lots. But I guess I'm more concerned about the closeness to the lot line than anything. The other question I had, Laura, is there any hardship here at all on the applicant?
Not that I'm aware of, but we'll definitely ask them to have that information for you guys.
Yeah.
Clark, Clark, do you know of any?
No, I'm not aware of any.
I think a lot of it is that the property turned over. And that is, I think, fairly typical of sometimes a new owner or somebody when they're looking to purchase a property is looking at those old tax maps and deeds and sees that, you know, it's sort of two lots and sees an opportunity there for their investment. But
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean,
could they move?
I'm concerned about the precedent that might be set.
Yeah.
You know, it's very hard for this lot to be okay and then others in the neighborhood not to be okay, unless there's some compelling reason.
just I tend to agree with you guys there. I think what I think of when I see this is that if we start allowing subdivisions of small lots to not meet the zoning code, you start whittling away at those last remaining open spaces through people's yards and things like that, and you just kind of like start chipping away at, you know, even less. So you know, it's something to think about. You do have a right to subdivide. We always talk about that, but if you can't meet the bulk zoning, then that's really a question like, where do you want to go with that?
So is the issue that the building, the garage is now too close to the property line where you divide it?
That's one of the issues, and the other is the lots are slightly small. They're required to be 18,000 square feet, and they're both
Okay.
about 15,000 square feet.
Okay.
So R2, they're allowed to be 9,000 square feet, but in this neighborhood, they're supposed to be 18,000 square feet.
Was that ever a smaller number that you know of, Laura? Like, was that ever 15,000, let's say?
So if you go beyond 1971, the zoning was quite different. It's very hard to compare. But since the major enactment of the zoning that, you know, the town has been regulating under since 1971, it has been 18,000 square feet to my knowledge.
So like you were saying, if this was two lots, it had to be that way prior to 1971 because
Yeah.
they were essentially non-conforming.
Yeah, so sometimes I actually have the original subdivision in my GIS. Let's see. Yeah, it's here. So the original subdivision was done in 1945. The original one. I think I have too much open on my computer. Come on. There we go. There's somewhere in here, yeah. So 1945, like that's what you get for subdivision maps from 1945.
And it doesn't matter that you're subdividing into two lots that are 15,000 square feet.
Well, yeah, so 1945, that's 30 years
1945.
before, yeah, well, a little bit less than 30 years before the main fabric of zoning kind of, you know, was implemented across Niskayuna. So likely when this was subdivided, actually it looks like it was even before 1945, might have been recorded in 1945, but it looks like it was actually done in 1938. So, yeah, the zoning requirements were either non-existent for this type of subdivision or very different. And then 1971 is when our major zoning was enacted.
So my vote is that, I know we're not voting, but I would prefer not to divide and produce something so small within a, you know, I agree with Laura on the precedent.
The division that can't meet the zoning codes in that area. I know, like, just from what we looked at, you know, from across the street, there are, you know, we do know there's drainage concerns in the area. So obviously adding impervious there, just based on what we know of directly, you know, adjacent to this property, you know, is also a consideration. But I think this is a smaller amount of disturbance, but it's still a consideration as well. That's how it used to be.
Yeah, I think one of the neighbors, when the subdivision was gonna happen on Van Antwerp, there was a lot of concern about the drainage. We had that
Yeah,
one
because
neighbor
there's
come
a
before the board.
drainage channel that right here. Do you see where these trees were left? That's because there's a ravine here, and there's a drainage channel that goes down, and then there's like a culvert here, and then the drainage continues on this way. But all of this, generally speaking, kind of winds up here and then down into these people's properties, which is where the concern came from before. Okay, did we have anything else that we wanted to talk about, or just as a preliminary quick look, we'll pass on some of those questions and look up some of those concerns, and also pass on a little memo to the planning board so they kind of know where, where our initial review is at, and then maybe again next month.
That sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Okay, great. We're moving right along. Discussion items. Last month, we talked about a natural resource inventory, and I know, Ashok, you did some background work on there. I don't know if you wanted to share with the committee what you found, and I know you sent out some stuff.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So after we had our discussion last month, I attended a webinar that was organized by the Hudson River Estuary Program. Now, we are not in their geographical location, but it was about wetland preservation, and I attended it anyway. So they made the point that having a natural resources inventory is very helpful to have a global perspective instead of approaching things at the site plan level. And I thought that was a good point to make. And I started digging around a little bit. Turns out there's a lot of resources available for communities intending to start a natural resources inventory. A number of communities close by, they have already started or have existing ones. Some examples are East Greenbush and Bethlehem and Clifton Park. Clifton Park has something called an open space plan, which is something that comes out of a natural resources inventory and say, okay, here's our open space, and how do we plan with it? I also looked at some guidelines that the state had about preparing NRIs, and it seems to me, or the guidelines indicate that that our committee, meaning the CAC, is the natural entity that is capable of doing these things. And there's even a specific law, like a state law, that empowers CACs to undertake this project and finish it, and so on. And one of the points made was that was extremely good for community outreach purposes, to have a real discussion with residents about the importance of open space and all the other things that we've been talking about, the pesticide outreach and the pollinators and meadows. It can all be folded into these activities. And personally, I'm a big fan of outreach because exactly 1 year ago in 2020, January, I didn't know the CAC existed. Yeah, and I don't know if you guys remember in March, just before the pandemic hit, I made an appearance to the CAC as a private citizen and talked about lawns and such. And I didn't even know that people could join the CAC, and believe me, I'm not alone. Like, whenever I talk to town people, like, the most common question I get is like, oh, that's great. How do I contribute? How do I do this and do that. So, and I think outreach is a very, very good thing. The last thing I looked at is funding, and here the plot gets complicated. There's something called the Mohawk River Watershed Program, and I spoke to the person who controls their grants. They've had budget cuts, and they don't have anything for until the year 2022, and even that's iffy right now. And there's some funding that's potentially available through the Climate Smart Communities program, but that's again a little bit iffy. And there are amazing things. There's one called the Hudson River Greenway project, and the boundary is like just at the border of Niskayuna. And this Hudson River estuary business, their boundary is also just at the border of Niskayuna. So we are unfortunately
Was
cut
that
out
Albany,
of some.
Albany, Niskayuna? Yeah.
What did you say, Dot?
I said it must be Albany County. Is that what it is? The difference between Albany County and Schenectady?
It looks like it, but
I
there
didn't
are
mean to
some communities that are very close by that are included. Like Half Moon is part of the the good areas that are eligible for funding. Burnt Hills is eligible, but we are not. That's the way of it. So anyway, I don't think that should let us be deterred, because there's a number of things we can already start doing while we look for more funding opportunities. And you've seen my emails. Like, I'm pretty psyched about the whole possibility. And there are these small pockets of wild space that is like extremely important to like very local neighborhoods. Like we have one behind our church at Arcona Court. It's like a small pocket, meaning like no more than one house and yard, maybe like two houses and yards, but it's there, and kids play in it and a lot. And it's nice to bring those under those small pockets. They matter a whole deal for community well-being and biodiversity and everything. It'll be so good to bring those under some umbrella of protection, and I like the idea. And I'll stop talking now. Thank you, Chairman Dot, for letting me speak.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your enthusiasm on this. I had done some looking at the survey tool since our last meeting as well, and I think it's a really good tool, and it probably needs to be modified somewhat or changed a little bit to meet our needs. But the way I look at this task is I see it's broken into two components, really. One is a mission policy part, like what do we envision the town to do? What do we want to accomplish with this? And then we have a second part that's really what I would consider the nuts and bolts, which would be like the survey and all the detailed analysis. And if you look at the natural resource inventory that's put out by Cornell University, I mean, there's a lot of like what I would consider detailed information that's really important, but it's really the nuts and bolts, nitty gritty. So I don't know, in thinking about how this committee could potentially do it, I was thinking maybe we could split it up into two different type of tasks. Maybe we could form like a subcommittee to do the nuts and bolts sort of stuff, collect the material and stuff, and we could, maybe subdivide that. And as far as like the policy or the mission of what we want to accomplish here, and maybe some of the broader, higher discussions, I would probably think that the whole committee should basically set some of those global parameters, and we could have discussions back and forth. And I didn't know what people thought about that, because it's a huge undertaking, but I think as Ashok said, it's really, really important that we do this, and I think the town would really benefit.
I have two questions. Isn't the Climate Smart Task Force doing something like this, Laura?
So we talked about it a lot at the Climate Smart Community Task Force. It was one of the things that we put forward to try to get funded in the budget, but unfortunately, like just with I mean, the town is just facing millions of dollars of deficit right now because we're not getting the money that we normally get from the state, and we're not getting. So we didn't get any money for the natural resources inventory this year. But if anybody wants to watch the budget meeting, I fought for it really hard.
Yeah.
But
Hey.
and so I mean, I don't think in the future, if the budget got better, that we wouldn't get any money. But the longer we wait, the worse it sort of gets. And I think that members of the climate smart community, looked into it and tried to do it a little bit. But when you really look at what needs to be submitted, I mean, I asked for $30,000. I think it's a pretty big undertaking. Even if we only get it started, anything that you do that is meeting all of that criteria, I think makes it more eligible. If that's what ASHOC had said, that it's maybe a little bit iffy for the climate smart communities funding, but that's the only source that I can think of for now. But if you start it, your grant is much more eligible in that way as well, because you can say we've got 9 volunteers, we've got a task force broken out to it, we've started doing the inventory, so it may, one, you're working on it. 2, it makes you more eligible if something comes, and also when you start the ball rolling, potentially if it's still going, the town may even be able to fund it in the future if we do get the money. But so yes.
Yeah.
The climate smart community was looking at it, but I think it did the amount of stuff. It's not like one person on the climate smart community task force that can do it, and so it rolled naturally over into the CAC.
Would it be possible
It seems like
to combine members from other, like Climate Smart, if there were some people that wanted to participate in it, we could do this inter-committee group.
That's a really good idea. They would likely, you could probably do that. Because it is actually specifically a climate smart task force action.
Right.
Priority action, which is why we tried to get it funded in the budget. I think what we did is we scaled it back, and the climate smart community task force is now going to work on the greenhouse gas inventory, because that was much smaller. That was like in the range of like the $3,000 to $5,000. And it was also a priority action, so that seemed more achievable within a year, so that we could try and get that certification.
Ashok, do you know if the other communities that you mentioned got some kind of a grant or outside expertise? Because this seems like a really big project.
Yes, the other communities, at least most of them that I looked at, they did get funding, but like Laura said, a lot of them said like it's a work in progress, and then when you're at that position, that you already have your ducks in order a little bit. And then it becomes easier to get funding.
True.
The Mohawk River program, they do fund NRIs. It's just that we can't look to them for another year. And regarding the funding, like what do people do with the money? It's almost always hire a consultant and work with a consultant. So when you say it's a big project, yes, it is true, and some consultant expertise is needed. But I want to look back and say there are other things that we can do in the meantime, like outreach is cheap. We can just say, we are developing an NRI, we are developing town level priorities. What does the public want? It's as simple as like web surveys and meeting people at farmers markets and whatnot. Like that kind of thing we can already do.
Does our master plan outline open areas, green areas?
Yes, it does. There is a table 3, public parks, open space, and private recreation facilities chart. On the 2013 comprehensive plan, it starts at page 51.
Yeah, one of the things that the plan says is that the town should develop an open space plan. So if you look at the plan and read it through, one of the objectives is to actually come up with a survey and an open space plan. Now, I can tell you that when the comprehensive plan was being developed, we didn't necessarily think that we would do a survey like the Climate Smart survey was, but we felt as a committee that it was really, really important to really get a handle on properties that are of value to Niskayuna, vacant large properties, and other areas of particular character or value to the town. So we could sort of identify those and then take preemptive actions if necessary, or look for tools to protect them. And I think for me, one of the things that really drove this point home recently was the Shannon Boulevard development, because I had no idea that there was a south part of the Nature Conservancy that was basically underutilized and not accessible, really. And when Joel came before the committee, he wanted to do the development, just looking at the map, for me, I realized we could accomplish something that I didn't even know we had. And the big question is, we were lucky with Joel because he worked with the town to really come up with a plan that I think everybody benefits with, but that's not always the case, or we may have missed it. So I think at the very least, coming up with a survey of open spaces and large parcels and what's important to the town, I think there's a lot of easy low-lying fruit that we can do. As far as characterizing the soil and all the hydrology and stuff like that, maybe technically that's something we don't want to tackle right away. I'd have to look at that, to sort of figure out what that involves. But there is some really highly technical aspects of it. But I think the plan would really be useful, even at a higher level or a less technical level, with the goal of eventually getting to the climate smart level. That's my.
I'm in full agreement there. Like about the low hanging fruit. The town of Clifton Park, for instance, they don't have a natural resources inventory. They have an open space plan, and they have done precisely what Chairman Strayer was talking about. Inventory all the big open spaces in their town, and then say, which ones should be protected and so on.
But I like the idea of it not only being big ones, like you had said, Ishak, like the small one in Arcona, it may be the only open space within quite a bit of distance of, a residential area.
Exactly.
And so, small,
that's what
it may
makes
actually
it so valuable for the kids.
It's valuable. So I think there's two kind of things that we would want to look at. The big ones, because they are, I think, vulnerable to development pressures. And then, the small ones are also vulnerable to development press, but the small ones are also sometimes the last little fragment of something in these neighborhoods, and that can be extremely valuable as well.
Yeah, I think underserved areas, we should really look at that. If you look at most of the parkland and open space, it's really clustered around Bladnick Park and that area.
Right.
If you go to some places up until recently, like Stanford Heights, there wasn't really a lot of parkland there, but there was a deal with the county, so now there's at least something there. But there's other areas of the town that aren't well served. Like Avon Crest. I don't know if there's a lot of open space on the south side of that. But I think it's important to understand what we have.
Maybe we can start with an inventory of existing open spaces, large and small, and talk about which ones should be preserved for conservation and biodiversity and enjoyment of kids and so on.
I think that's excellent. The other thing I would also think we could do too, and we did a little bit in the comp plan, was suggest tools for land preservation. And if you read there, there's a whole series of tools. And one of the things that I thought that we should do as a town is maybe pursue some of those to see how the town could use them. At the time, we were basically listing available tools. So there's like trading of rights, development rights for different parts of town. Tax breaks, through land easements. There's also, particularly in Long Island and downstate, there are special mortgage taxes that help a town build up money to support open space and parkland. I know that's been successfully used. I don't know if that would be the same, have the same effect here in this unit, but I would think that we could at least look at some of those a little bit more too. And again, that I think would be really important as well.
Go ahead, Laura.
I just had a thought. I don't know if it'll work or not, but I was listening to the Capital District Transportation Committee planning meeting today, and they were wrapping up their 2020 technical assistant applications, but they said that they were going to come out again for 2021 in April, and that's really not that far. And they help with things like comprehensive plans and things. And so I've never seen them do a natural resources inventory, but if they do comprehensive plan, they may not be able to do the technical part with us, but they may be also able to guide us on some of the larger things like Dart was saying of breaking apart. So we may be able to get some kind of regional help through a technical assistance it's actually the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, the CDRPC, but the program's administered through the CDTC. Sorry for all the acronyms. It took me forever to understand what anybody was saying at that meeting. Because the state's there, so you have like DOT and CDTC and CDRPC and all the counties and everything. But they do have really good technical assistance programs, and so we could see if they would be willing to help us with a natural resource inventory too.
So how does the committee feel about taking on a project like this? What would be a good step forward? It would certainly require a greater commitment than what we currently have. And I think it should be a multi-committee effort, but.
Yeah, it also depends on your timeline. How quickly do you want to get this done? I don't know if you thought about that, Ashok.
So the timeline varies from different community to different community. But when talking to the DEC people, the impression that I got was like journey before destination. Especially with regards to outreach and getting the whole community involved and so on. And personally, for me, I'm happy to wait, like on some of the nitty gritty, like wetlands and soil and inventory of birds and habitats and the real complex stuff for which we would need to work with a consultant. And on the other hand, identifying small wild spaces and prioritizing them for preservation, that's like low-hanging fruit that, like Dart said, and we can easily get started on that.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. I'm a little pessimistic for two reasons. I think it'll be hard to get funding because everyone's budget has been decimated, local, state. And I think we're going to need some advisory or technical help once we get started.
I do have an offer for an advisory and technical help from a couple of people in the Mohawk River, the Hudson River Estuary program. They can't fund us, but the lady her name is Ingrid Haeckel. She recently worked with East Greenbush to develop their NRI and open space plan. And she said, you know, I can call her, we can call her anytime. And there's another person called Laura Heady, Heady. She's with the DEC. She said she'd be happy to help. I mean, they won't be consultants who will like do our bidding or whatnot, but we can certainly use their expertise because
Right.
they are currently helping other towns with NRIs right now.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff, when you look at the resource guide and you click on some of the links, some of the maps are already made for the area.
Mhm.
Like, for example, there was a soil map and there was a watershed map, you know, so there are some stuff that are done. I couldn't actually access the maps because they wanted me to, I don't know, they wanted me to set up an account and I didn't really feel like doing it when I was looking at it. But Laura, are there some sources out there that are already done as part of this or not?
Yeah, I think there are, and I mean, I completely understand the trepidation because the CAC's taking a lot on recently. But what I think you and I had talked about is we might be able to do a task force and maybe combine like members of the CAC so that like we're not really going through the work at a CAC meeting, you know. And I'm not saying in a public forum. I love public forums. Anybody can always come and see what we're doing at any time.
Yeah.
But it's probably not a super good use of the CAC's like monthly public meeting time when we're going through projects. So
Right.
we could break out into a task force for people who are really willing and committed. And we do need 3 new members. And so possibly when we're doing that outreach, we can reach out to members and see if, somebody, wants to take on that as a new project. Because I know you guys right now are all kind of heading your own projects.
Mhm.
But, if we get some new members and ASHA can really run with this one and we can pull in some CSC, Climate Smart Community Task Force people on it as well. We might be able to get that going, and then the CAC would be the one that we run everything through. So you wouldn't have to be working
So
on.
I'm optimistic. Oops, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So I'm optimistic. I would be nice to be optimistic about something. So this is what, so I would, so I would like to, get as far, do what we can. I'm going to just, I'm just going to throw my husband under the bus. He is a civil engineer and he does water hydraulics and he does all the dams and stuff in New York. He's done a lot of that work in New York State, and he's so he knows a lot of this information. So I'll make him help us, and he has access to a lot of that information and just like the expertise on what that watersheds and all that stuff and what it looks like and yada, yada, yada. So I've seen more dams in New York State than any of you combined. And I can tell you that, anyways, never mind. It's great. It's great.
Can we do this with the limitations of access to the town hall and getting together as, more than one person in a room with the pandemic? How will that affect it?
I think it makes it harder, but I don't think it's impossible.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I think my preference would
Slower.
be, if we could all get in a room and open up the maps and have discussions about it and stuff like that. We'll get there
Yeah.
maybe someday, but I don't know. We're remote.
Maybe we
and I
should
work
just
for
start
day,
with picking a
work
day
at
of the
home.
week that, maybe we should just start
Yeah.
with picking another day of the week to set up another Zoom call that, that once a month, that if you're interested, that you'll then go to that meeting and then we'll start there and then we'll, whoever shows up at that, then we break out from there.
I think that's a good idea, Ellen. Laura, do you think we could sort of advertise perhaps, this initiative for a task force and then
Yes.
set up a
Good
date
idea.
in which we could meet?
Yep.
What would be a reasonable timeline to do that, do you think?
Well, for the Economic Development Committee meeting, I and bringing all the vacancies and stuff. So what I'm thinking is, you know, we would do an email blast trying to recruit some new members to the CAC, and then maybe I don't want to sort of combine the two together. Let the, you know, like let some of those people send us their resumes, and then I would think maybe a week or two after that, we could solicit to see if there's interest for additional people to help us with a natural resources inventory. But I think that we could get that out in an email blast, you know.
Yeah, and I know we talked about having young people sort of be a part of this as well. Would you do the same thing for this? Because you would think that a lot of like high school students might be interested in this, especially if you go through maybe a science teacher, you know, teaching about the environment.
Yeah, we can definitely do that too. That's it. That's sort of our next thing, the youth initiative. But yeah.
So do we want to set a potential time frame for a meeting like what Ellen proposed, or do you want to just get your arms wrapped around what we talked about today and then sort of figure out where we want to go? I guess what I'm asking is, would this meeting happen in January, or are we thinking February timeframe?
I'd like to jump in and have my arms wrapped around. You know, like, yeah, I'm happy to wait for, other people to show up and all that, but I have energy and time right now, and because I teach at Union, and this is my off term, and this is like my most productive period. So personally, like we talked about the low-hanging fruit, like identifying the open spaces, big and small, and simply making a list. Like, I think that sort of thing can be done while we are waiting for more people to show up, and I'd like to get started. That's my personal feeling.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, do we want to just pick, like, I'm just looking like Wednesday nights, like next week is available, and then the 27th of January is also available, or daytime meetings are also fine with me. So if you guys, Wednesdays are good for me.
I think the 27th would be a reasonable time. I would prefer to have time to get people to consider and join the group, Laura, rather than, go too quickly. I think we can come up with a schedule after that. I would vote for Wednesday night. For me, it's challenging, meetings during the day, and I would have a couple town meetings during the day. But Ashok, I would say that if you wanted to go and, pull some of the stuff together, that certainly can help. I mean,
Sure. I will look at existing maps and try to identify pockets of wild space. I'm happy to reach out to the climate smarts people and see if anyone would be interested in joining. So
yeah. I think one of my...
There was also the...
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ellen, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just the young woman that spoke last time at the CAC about maybe we could reach out to her.
He reached out to us.
I don't know her name.
Yeah.
Laura probably has plans for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she was involved in something like this at in Clifton Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe
did Jackie contact you, Laura?
Yeah, I've talked to her a couple times, and she knows that there's a vacancy on the CAC. So I have been talking to her, and she has expressed interest in helping with this. So I do think we do have people out there that have a lot of energy and will definitely help. Sure.
Yeah, I think it's really important at some level that this task force, represent several committees of the town. The more I'm thinking about this, because ultimately, I think this will feed into some broader policy initiatives. So if we can get people involved in here and sort of target what we want to do, I think that's really important discussions to have. I don't think that stops us from gathering data and stuff, but at some level I think we have to sort of discuss what's important and what's the parameters, or more of a policy type thing. And I think that's where the representation with a wide cross section is probably a good idea, and that can be done a number of ways. We could talk about that as we progress.
Okay,
Well,
that sounds good.
Discussion.
Yeah. So I'll put out. I'll kind of circle on the calendar the 27th. I'll put out some emails trying to gather a little bit more members to the CAC, and then Ashok, you can work on some of the groundwork if you have time, and you can ping it off of me and Dart and Ellen, and anybody else who's interested for now, and then we'll continue to recruit. That sounds like a good idea.
So one quick question, please. Like where can I find maps that would show things like the little wild space behind Arcona Court? Like are there town maps in the town hall that I can look at, or are they on the website?
There is a good website. It's called Schenectady Information Mapping System. It's like, I think it's literally www.sims. Something like that. Sims.
If you go on the Schenectady website, you can get to it.
Yes.
I think, right?
So if I just Google Schenectady Sims, and it always comes up. And I can give you our password, although it doesn't really get you that much more information to have our password. But what you could do is you can kind of scan for, chunks of green space. They have the most up-to-date aerials. They have tax parcels on there. And then if you have questions about specific spaces, you could email me a list of them, and maybe we could get together occasionally and go through them and see, what the deal is with them as we're adding them to our list, and what, if they're privately owned, if they're town owned, if they have deed restrictions, we could look at those while we're adding them to our list. And if we just do them, if you just find 4 or 5 of them, and we look at, 4 or 5 of them every week or something, I think that's doable.
Okay, Laura, I will do it.
Yeah, I just got onto the Sim sites while we were talking, so you can get on it.
So Sims has some good layers already. It has contours, which is helpful if you're looking.
Yeah, they do.
What's going on with that. It has DEC mapped wetlands. Does not have Army Corps of Engineers wetlands, but it does have the DEC one, so that's useful information to know. There's a couple of things on there. It has the aquifer zones.
I'm noticing it has the subdivisions boundary lines.
Some of them, they got them actually from us, but yeah, there's actually quite a bit of information on Sims. Yeah. And it's a good place to start. So you could be looking at those for those places in your neighborhood, identify, what the range of addresses around there, and then we can take a look at them, add them to our list of things that we want to investigate and potentially protect.
Okay, I will do it.
And I know I speak for everyone, Ashok, it's amazing what you do already, and all the information you've already provided us to the emails and everything is very, very appreciated.
Well, I'm always a little afraid because I'm new and I've only been here 7 months, and I'm like, what will all these seasoned veteran people think of me proposing all these ideas? And so I'm very grateful that there is support, and nice support.
We appreciate the energy. Bring it on.
Yeah, really. Sounds good. Hey, do we want to move on?
Sure.
Has everybody had a chance to voice their opinion on this topic, or? Okay. All right. Next topic, youth initiative.
Yeah, so real quickly, I just wanted to let you know, I don't know if you guys saw it, if you're signed up for our emails, we did send out an email blast for the youth initiative. You are unfortunately the first committee that meets. And so the return time isn't now. So you guys will probably be sorting through applications. Hopefully we get a bunch of them in your February meeting. But the intent based on the email blast is to try and have somebody available to us by the end of February. So the email blast is out there. I have gotten a couple returns on it already. And hopefully we'll get some more. I know that they're pushing it out to the high school students today or tomorrow. And so I'd expect to have that as an action item in February.
I had a quick question on that, please. A colleague of mine at Union, her daughter was interested, but she will only be a junior in September, and she wanted to know if she can start in the summer. And I said, I don't know.
I think if she's interested, have her send me her just an interest letter. I can look at it and give her feedback. If she doesn't qualify now, like she's got a shoe in if she submits it for next year if she wants to. Anyway, there's never any harm in seeing me and saying, I'm interested. This is my status. This is my situation.
Okay, thanks.
And I think just to the reports, the pesticide outreach update. I was just talking about this with Ellen. Like she's just been working so hard on the signs, which is so appreciated, and she's gone back and forth to Knott Street office like just about 1 million times. We were able to do it. We got them ordered. We purchased them, with our 2020 budget, and we will have them once we do a couple final clicks of a button here. So the signs are coming. The only change that may occur, which is just, kind of the budget crisis that's happened since, the beginning of this program, is originally we're kind of asking for a donation for the cost of the sign. That may end up being, a requirement. If you sign the pledge and you get a sign, you may have to pay. It's $2.50 for the town. So we're looking at $2.50 or $3 to cover staff time to administer the program, something like that. But I don't think that a $3 charge is going to deter people from entering into the program. And the other thing that we were saying is that they're kind of small signs and people have corner lots and stuff. If they are paying $3 a sign and they want 4, to do like the boundaries of their property, then it's no problem. They just pay us $12, so that they can get the amount of signs that they need to advertise the program. If we sell out of our 400 signs, then we have the money and can clearly show that there's no issue with us carrying forward on purchasing more and allowing people to continue on with the program. So that is probably a change that's going to happen when we roll out the final paperwork. And I think we were thinking we're making sure that the program works, we're making sure the website works. And then we'll do, sort of a real push to it when we have the signs in hand and it's starting to be, the snow is starting to melt a little bit. But I think we're in a really good place on it. Hopefully you guys don't mind if we have to charge, but I don't think it's a big deal.
In the past, we have, first let me say that this is great. To the people doing this, awesomeness. But in the past, we talked about doing some kind of outreach. The pesticide applicators certainly do tremendous outreach. They go door to door and explain the great benefits of pesticides. There are none.
Agreed.
We have talked about a tabling at the farmers market or having an info session like we did with a meadow, like a meet and greet. I think we should we cannot match their outreach efforts, but I think we we should do something. And I will volunteer for anything.
Great. I mean, we actually have a lot of it done because we've been working on this for a long time. We have a flyer that we probably really only need to tweak, that we can email blast and drop off, maybe as a counter, if you guys see a bunch of homes in the neighborhood that have the door tags, maybe we can combine with some flyers. Those are easy. We can just print them out in our, in our office. That outreach that we can do. I don't think that tabling is in the cards for a little while, but email blasts and flyers and things, we can definitely use that to counter. And then when we roll out this program, we can do a lot of push. We can get the town board to talk about it. We can put it on our website and we can push it through, through email blasts. And we had talked about maybe even getting the Gazette to pay some attention because the sign is so cute. So, yeah.
So there's going to be like a mail, like a paper letter saying like town.
So I'm not really sure why, but my reception. Oh.
Go ahead, Ellen.
So I was just going to say, unfortunately, I don't know why, but my internet is like kind of spotty tonight. So I'm only catching like here and there of words or whatever. So I knew that Ashok said something about outreach, but I didn't know whose we were trying to live up to. But something about going door to door. So if somebody, maybe I'll just read it in the minutes when it goes out. But anyways,
the one thing we could do that I was thinking would be in the spring is it possible for us to have a press conference? And do we have enough clout to get like a local TV station there?
We can try. We can definitely do a press release. I know the town board is so behind this program. It's great. They have supported it from every step of the way. They, wanted to regulate pesticides within the town of Niskayuna. It's just that's legally.
No, I think we could easily reach out to your Niskayuna, the Gazette people who do the stories in there, and they would absolutely do a story about this. And if they don't, write a letter to the editor, and people do read that. So I'm sure there's a way to get in the paper.
Maybe Spectrum Channel 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's community access, isn't there?
Yeah,
there is.
Denise or Yasmin would probably both be willing to do a press, like an actual press release. I don't know how they do them, but I've seen both of them do them. So if we really ask them, they probably would also do a press release for us when we were ready.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yep, definitely. My coworker used to work at Spectrum also, so she has a lot of friends who work there. Can you hook us up with somebody?
Mm.
Yeah, and so I think that like the rollout time for that is probably like mid-March, I would think, because people are starting to think about their lawns again, or maybe like early April. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure when it would be, but somewhere in there.
Right after that last March snowstorm that we always get.
You want to catch them before they apply the pesticide. So
exactly.
Do like the first day of spring, like March 20th, first day of spring.
Earth Day.
Yeah, in between the last March snowstorm and the early April one, right?
Let's do the Earth. Let's tie it to Earth Day. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So, Ellen, you're so
okay. So is Earth Day in March or is it in April?
April. Earth Day's in April. First day of spring is March. Yeah.
It's early.
Okay. So if we're going to do it in April, that means that we need to have our little press release or whatever, all that together. They probably work 2 weeks in advance, right? If they're like a newspaper or maybe
it could be less than that.
I'm going to put it on my calendar to make sure that we get into our Niskayuna for Earth Day or for Earth Day for this. So I'll put it. I'm not a very good writer, but we'll figure something out.
I can help with that. I write a lot of press releases.
Earth Day is April 22nd. It's a Thursday.
That might be a little late.
I know. I
Yeah,
think so
we could
too.
do the first day of spring, kind of aim around then.
Okay, so let's do the first
Yeah.
day of spring.
And if we're trying to just get one paper to cover it, like the Gazette, we can just reach out to a writer and editor there and pitch the story to them instead of doing a full press release also.
So the first day is going to be either March 21st or March 22nd, right? It's usually one or the other.
Right.
It's really around March 20th because it's my daughter's birthday. So
Oh.
her birthday is always the first day of spring.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
but
think
it's at
that's
March
good.
20th. Okay.
And then Ellen, do you want to, because you're so good about keeping up with the emails, maybe just start emailing me and Jeannie your thoughts, and then we'll start going back and forth the same way we did with the sign.
Okay. I can do
Okay.
that.
Alrighty. And then what's our last thing?
The
Oh,
last
I
thing is Lomo Biodiversity Initiative.
yeah. I mean, that's waiting for the spring too. I mean, that all got approved. I think we have to finalize the map, which I talked about before. But I'm wondering, because the main comment that we kind of heard from the people who live on Catherine's Wood is, can we get some wildflowers there? Really, this is a Kathy question, unless somebody else knows. Do you know of places that we could start kind of lobbying to see if we could get little plugs or anything for making the front part of the Lomo area look a little more colorful?
Right. I can see.
Does Cornell Cooperative ever give out some like free flowers?
They do, and they had a program, native plants, or perennial plants in public spaces. But our source was Cobleskill, and as part of their plant science program, they'd plant seeds in the spring semester, and they used to just dump the plants, but we started picking them up for the last couple of years. Last year, because of the pandemic, there were no plants. But I'm going to look at the greenhouse. We might have some still in the back that we can use. And then we also grow some for the spring plant sale. And we always have more than enough. So I'm sure we could get some of those. But what is your timeline? Because these, we couldn't plant till the spring anyway, right?
Yeah, I would think that actually we can just continuously kind of take whatever we can get to, it's a big space. There's no way we're going to be able to make it look the way people want it to look immediately, but the more plants that we can start filling in, the better.
Yeah. Let me check into that and I'll let you know. I'm sure
Okay,
there's some.
I feel like I had a lead on a ton of Black-Eyed Susans, which I will continue to follow. But, anybody else who knows of plants that need a home, I think that would make a big difference. That was definitely the impression I got when I was talking to them, is that they really just didn't want to see long grass along that split rail fence. And I get it. Like, if you have color behind that split rail fence, it's going to look nice. And then behind the color, it tends to be grass.
Yeah.
That's okay.
What size space are we starting with?
Well, I think we have a good, that whole curve, we can work with, but if we want to make it look really nice for the beginning to get everybody on our side, we could do it smaller, and then start expanding it out as we can make it look inviting and good, and we change. But I definitely think we should focus on the path, because we're gonna make a mowed walking path between Catherine Woods, and so if we're starting small and we're trying to make sure that kind of opening area looks good, I think we should focus on that path so people get used to walking on a mowed path with long grass on either side, and then we start going towards the end of the golf range, and then towards the forest. We can start that and see how that goes.
Okay. Sounds good.
That's all I have.
Okay, do we have anything else that anybody wants to raise to the committee at all? Any other?
I had one quick question. Like Laura, a couple of meetings ago, you said there is a there is a potential for a farm to come back to Niskayuna? Like, do you know anything more about that?
Do you remember what the context was for that?
Yeah, no, Laura, I remember it was the one guy who has some chickens, and I think he wanted to talk about could
Oh,
he get his
yeah.
property.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard from him. I do need to reach out, but I haven't heard from him. I will put that on my to-do list to reach back out to him and see where he's at.
I think Tom Canizzo, Ashok, one of the building inspectors, sent him some information on that, what the procedure would be for that to happen, and he hasn't responded yet.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay, hearing no other people wanting to speak. If I'm reading the mute right on everybody's screen, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see
Good night,
you,
everyone.
Next month.
Okay, good
Or the
night.
27th.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.